What if I told you that there is a little ritual, so simple as touching your forehead with a few drops of water, capable of opening the doors of the sky and slam the of the hell? For centuries, millions of people have used holy water as part of their faith, but very few they know the secret that Padre Pio shared with a select few. The right way to use it during the Lent to attract miracles real. We are not talking about superstitions nor empty symbols. We are talking about a profound spiritual knowledge, jealously protected by one of the most mysterious saints of the 20th century. A man who fought battles invisible, that he carried the wounds of Christ in his body, and that he understood like few others the hidden power of the sacramentals. Padre Pio was not a man common. His life was marked by visions, mystical ecstasies, and constant spiritual warfare. In one of his letters he warned, "The enemy is most active during the Lent. Protect your soul and your home. Use the holy water, but do it with intention, with faith, and with the correct method." And what is that method? That's where this story begins. In the next few minutes, you will discover the 3 pillars that make up this sacred method, how apply them correctly, and what miracles have happened in the lives of those who it followed with devotion. Stories real, changes that the science still can't explain. Because the Lent is not just a time of sacrifice, it is a unique spiritual window, a threshold between the sky and the land where the human soul is closest to the divine mystery. Brace yourself. What you're about to hear is uncommon, and once you hear it, you know you won't be able to ignore it. Was a time in which people lived more consciously invisible. They felt the weight of the good and evil on their shoulders. Today, however, many they have forgotten that we are in the midst of a daily spiritual battle. But Padre Pio never did, forgot, and left a silent alert for those who would listen to it. During the last years of his life, in private conversations with faithful close, Padre Pio shared an urgent secret about the Lent. He said that this period was not simply a preparation for the Easter, but a season of combat. And that during these 40 days, the forces of evil became more active, more aggressive, more subtle. These weren't just symbolic words. For him, this war was real. They learned that, during the Lent, Padre Pio spent hours in deep prayer, many times crying. I felt spiritual burdens from all over the world. Sometimes he said enigmatic phrases such as, "The enemy does not sleep during these days. He lurks in the thoughts, in the distractions, in his pride disguised as virtue." And it was in that context that spoke of the urgent need for protection, not only with prayer and fasting, but also with tools, specific spiritual ones. Among them, one stood out for its silent power, the holy water. But Padre Pio wasn't referring to the casual use of holy water. It wasn't enough with the sign of the cross upon entering a church. He spoke of a conscious, intentional daily use, following a pattern that connected his body, soul, and space in the one in which one lives. Because according to she, Lent is a crack in his time ordinary, a sacred gap where the veil between the spiritual and physical worlds thins. It is when the divine grace manifests itself more easily, but also when the shadows try infiltrate with more cunning. And in the middle of that battlefield invisible, Padre Pio raised his voice. Are you going to face the enemy unarmed? Use what the heaven has given you. Use it, he holy water, but as it should be used. This was he message that few they heard, that was lost among papers old, between private conversations, between confessions spirituals never officially recorded. But it is not entirely lost. Who it applied, they began to notice something different, dreams clearer, more ambient light, thoughts brighter, and yes, miracles, because the secret is not only in he water, it is in the inner attitude, in the constant devotion, and in his sacred moment in which it is applied. Now that you know the context of this forgotten alert, you are ready to give the following step. Understand why he holy water, used correctly, can transform not only your soul, but also your reality. For many, the holy water is just an automatic gesture. Wet your fingers, make the sign of the cross, continue with routine. But for the mystics, for those who have crossed the limits of the visible, the holy water is a real weapon. Invisible, yes, but powerfully effective. Padre Pio used to repeat a phrase that, for those who they listened without attention, it was happening unnoticed. If you only knew the value of the holy water, the you would use constantly. It didn't say occasionally or only en masse. He said constantly. But why? Because the holy water is not a simple symbol. It is a consecrated substance, transformed by the power of a blessing authentic. When a priest bless, not just pronounce words, invokes a spiritual reality that remains in every drop. Water, since ancient times ancient, it has been a symbol of life, of rebirth, of deep cleansing. In the Bible, God purifies the world with water in the flood. Jesus begins his ministry being baptized in Jordan, and the last gesture before his death, it was shedding blood and water. The water touches the body, but it also touches the soul, and when it is blessed, it acts as a shield, as a constant purification of what is not seen. Thoughts dark, heavy energies, influences destructive. The saints they knew, the exorcists they know, the wise they intuit. Padre Pio, who faced spiritual attacks brutal in the early mornings, he kept always holy water near her bed. Witnesses say that many, sometimes, waking up with dark presences in his room, sprinkled the place with her, and everything dissipated instantly. Not magic, it's spiritual authority transferred to the subject, and during the Lent, according to Padre Pio, that power is amplified. Because the Lent is a time of spiritual opening, where the practice's devotionals have a deeper impact. It is when the soul becomes more sensitive and therefore more vulnerable, but also more receptive to the funny. Holy water used with faith not only protects, it also enlightens, liberates, and strengthens. And I have here a detail that few they know. Padre Pio taught that the holy water, if used with directed intention, can be a channel for concrete miracles. Not for the substance in yes, but by the faith and obedience with which it is used. But it is not enough to wet your fingers when passing through the church. I was talking about something else, a method, a pattern, a constancy, and that is precisely it which we will reveal below, because knowing the force of the holy water is just the first step. What transforms life is knowing how to use it correctly. Padre Pio did not deliver empty formulas. Everything he taught came from his own spiritual experience, forged in the daily struggle against it invisible. And it was in one of his greatest moments, introspection. According to they relate some of his children, spiritual, who revealed this method. 3 simple but powerful acts that could radically transform the life of someone, the practice during the Lent. It wasn't superstition or religious rigidity. It was a guide, a key to unlocking portals of grace, protection, and miracles. This method consists of 3 pillars, 3 moments of the day that, if they are consecrated correctly, they create a spiritual circle that protects body, soul, and home. Pillar 1. The morning consecration, upon awakening. When opening the eyes every morning, it first of many do is look at the phone, check the networks, or run to the concerns of the day. But Padre Pio taught it contrary. Awakening is the most vulnerable moment of the soul, when we are still between worlds, between the dream and the vigil. That's why he recommended, wet your fingers in holy water and touch 3 parts of the body, forehead, lips, and the heart. The forehead to consecrate the thoughts of the day, the lips to purify the words that will come out of our mouths, the heart to align emotions with the God's will. Each touch should be accompanied by a short prayer, such as, Lord, guide my mind, guard my words, and purify my heart. This little one act, repeated every morning during the Lent, begins to reschedule not only the body, but also the spiritual awareness. The day starts with intention, not with distraction. Pillar 2, home protection, once a week. Many, they believe that evil manifests itself in great tragedies, but in reality slowly infiltrates, in discussions without reason, in heavy environments, in disturbing dreams, in fatigue without reason. Padre Pio warned that the home was to be sprinkled with holy water at least once a week, especially during the Lent. The method is simple. With reverence, a container with holy water, and go through each room of the house, sprinkling small drops while praying. Can repeat, may this house be a refuge of peace. May everything dark flee. May only the love of God remain. This symbolic act has a profound spiritual effect. It is a renewal of the covenant of divine protection over the place where we sleep, eat, dream, and live. Many people who adopted this practice, they noticed an immediate change. Arguments disappear, nightmares cease, a feeling of inexplicable calm. Pillar 3. The night blessing. Before sleeping. The night is a territory of mystery. It is when the mind lowers the guard and the soul becomes more exposed. Padre Pio suffered his worst spiritual attacks during the night. And that's why I never slept without first being sealed with prayer and holy water. The instruction is clear. Before closing the eyes, dip your finger in holy water and make the sign of the cross on oneself, asking protection. The prayer can be so simple as, Lord, take care of my sleep. Let your light surround me. Let the angels guard my soul while I rest. It's not the gesture that makes the difference. It is the intention, delivery, the recognition that without the divine grace, we are vulnerable. These three acts, morning, home, and night, form a sacred cycle, a spiritual rhythm that, according to Padre Pio, opens the soul to miracles and defends of evil. But he also warned, the enemy will try to prevent you from completing these acts. They will come oblivion, the laziness, the doubt. Therefore, it is necessary to associate them with existing habits. When brushing the teeth, when turning off the lights, when putting the key in the door, because the holiness is not in the grand gestures, but in the fidelity daily to the sacred. And those who maintained this practice for 40 days were never the same again themselves. 40 days. Not 30, 9, not 50, 40. That number appears again and again in the scriptures, always linked to transformation, to trials, to rebirth. It's no coincidence. Moses passed by 40 days in Mount Sinai before receiving the commandments. The people of Israel walked for 40 years in a desert to purify themselves before entering the promised land. Jesus fasted for 40 days in a desert, facing the tempter face to face. And you, what? Could you transform in 40 days? Padre Pio believed deeply in the spiritual power of the Lent. For him, it was much more than a liturgical rite. It was an inner journey, a retreat of the soul, a unique opportunity, a year to face the own demons and allow the funny act. He said that during these 40 days, the soul becomes more receptive, more open, but also more challenged. Because evil knows that a person who goes through the Lent with devotion can go out of the another unrecognizable side, stronger, cleaner, brighter. Therefore, the method he taught was not accidental. He was designed to accompany that transformation process from the first day to the last. Each act with holy water, every morning or evening prayer, is like a chisel that sculpts something new inside you. But it won't be easy. Many abandon the half. Others begin with enthusiasm, but they lose the constancy. It is there that Padre Pio said that the battle is more intense, not in external gestures, but in the inner perseverance. Can you imagine what would happen if you kept that commitment for a full 40 days? If for once you went all the way? Many who do, they did. They say that their lives changed, not necessarily with lights in a sky or voices from beyond, but with something deeper, a peace they didn't know existed, an unexpected clarity of mind, decisions they had previously they seemed impossible. And yes, in some cases, physical healings, family reconciliations, miraculous opportunities. 40 days may seem like little, but well lived. They can mark the beginning of a new history. There is no theory that moves as much as a true story. So before I continue, I need to tell you about three ordinary people who, by applying Padre Pio's method during the Lent, they saw how their lives changed in ways they never imagined. Maria, the woman who smiled again. Maria. She was 52 years old and had been living alone since her children moved out. After a difficult divorce, she fell in a silent depression. I went to Mass from time to time but felt that his faith had dried up. Until he heard in a homily, a fleeting mention is made of the use of holy water at home. Curious, she began to investigate and found the method of Padre Pio. He decided try, without many expectations. Every morning, when I woke up, I played her forehead, lips and heart. At first it toward without emotion, but the fourth day he began to feel something different, as if a light, dim at first, had turned on in its interior. A week later, he found himself singing in the kitchen. Don't Do It had been doing for a while, years. At the end of the Lent, not only had he overcome sadness, but he had recovered the desire to live. He reconnected with his children, joined a parish group, and most importantly, he smiled again. Carlos, the businessman who saved his business. Carlos owned a small family business. The pandemic there was left on the edge of the bankruptcy, loaded with anxiety, insomnia, and a constant feeling of failure. His devoted wife insisted in returning to God. During the Lent, almost out of obligation, agreed to follow Padre Pio's method. Every week, they sprayed the rooms of the house together with holy water. At first, it seemed useless. But he began to notice something. The discussions they came down, the strain in his home diminished, and his mind became clearer. In the second week, received an unexpected call. A client who didn't show up months ago, he returned with a great order. Then they came others. It wasn't magic, it was providence. Carlos understood that the spiritual order brings clarity also to the material world. At the end of the Lent, his business had stabilized, but more than that, he had recovered peace. And his marriage. Ana, the young woman who healed her soul. Anna was 28 years old and a difficult past. She had been emotionally abused for years, and although had sought help professional, something was still broken inside her. She felt like her soul was closed, hardened. A friend told her speak of Padre Pio's method. She wasn't very religious, but she decided try. I have nothing to lose, he thought. Every night, before going to sleep, he would do the sign of the cross with holy water and said in a low voice, "Protect me while I sleep, heal what still hurts." The first nights, he cried, not out of sadness, but for something he couldn't explain. He felt like his soul was leaving him. Opened little by little, sometimes dreams strange, forgotten memories, but something pushed me to continue. They passed the weeks. Upon arrival the Easter, she felt different, lighter, more human, more herself. Same. Anna not only found relief, he found sorry. And for the first time in years, he could look in the mirror without feeling ashamed. These stories are not exceptions. They are examples of the power that it has a practice simple when performed with deep intention and spiritual constancy. Miracles not always are spectacular. Sometimes they are silent. Sometimes they take the shape of a new opportunity, of a reconciliation, of a tear that liberates, of a hug you didn't expect. But they all start the same, with an act of faith. And if they achieved, why you don't? For centuries, the faith was seen as the affair of the soul, separated from the body and mind. But today, the science begins to confirm what the mystics always they knew. The practices, spiritual things don't just change his spirit. To transform his brain. Neurotheology, a discipline that studies the relationship between the brain and religious experience, has shown that rituals repeated with faith and mindfulness can positively alter the neurological patterns. In other words, when you consecrate your day with holy water, when you say a prayer from the heart, you are activating brain areas linked to peace, the empathy, the self-control, and hope. MRI studies show that people who pray with frequency or meditate on the sacred present a decrease in anxiety levels and an increase in the activity of the crust prefrontal, responsible for conscious decision making. It is no coincidence that the people who followed Padre Pio's method during the Lent have experienced mental clarity, emotional healing, and new perspectives. They were, without know it, reprogramming your nervous system from a spiritual plane. But there is something that the science cannot yet measure, the mystery. What happens when a person silently surrenders to such a gesture ancient as dipping your fingers in holy water? And it does with faith, with intention, with reverence. Padre Pio, I knew. He didn't talk about neuroscience, but he understood perfectly that the soul and the body are deeply intertwined. That's why he insisted so much on the perseverance, because I knew that it is not enough acts isolated. It is the repetition what forms the soul, and also he brain. And by practicing this method for 40 days, the soul is not only strengthened spiritually, it is also healed emotionally, it is also mentally balanced, it is also physically peaceful. Therefore, this path is not only religious, it is human, it is integral. It is a reconciliation between the faith ancient and the modern discoveries. And at the end of those 40 days, many not only felt miracles, they experienced a spiritual victory, a victory that is not always seen in the external, but that is felt in the deep, in the way of looking, of loving, of breathing, in the certainty that past whatever happens, God walks with you. Now already you know it. It's not a superstition, it's not an empty ritual, it's a forgotten spiritual legacy passed down by one of our most powerful and enigmatic saints. Padre Pio. He was not looking for popularity. He didn't write to be famous. He lived to save souls, and when he shared this method with his children spiritual, he did it because he knew they were coming difficult times, times of confusion, of inner silence, of battles invisible. And in the midst of all this, he left us this silent, humble but powerful weapon, the holy water. Now it's up to you. You decide if these words will remain as a simple curiosity, or if you will take the challenge of living the 40 days of the Lent as a royal road of transformation. Are you willing to consecrate your mornings, to protect your home with a gesture of faith, to seal your nights with a blessing? Don't need to be perfect, just consistent, just open, just willing, because the miracles do not come to those who observe from afar, but to those who dare to give a step of faith. And if you decide to start today, here's a promise. You won't be alone. Thousands of people around the world are rediscovering this practice. They are refilling their holy water bottles, not as decoration, but as a defense, as a consecration, as an act of love for their souls and their families. If something inside you moved during this video, don't ignore it. It may be the Spirit touching your door. Open it, beam the proof, begin tomorrow, and in 40 days, he comes back here. Tell us that changed. What did you feel, what you discovered? Because this is not just a message, it's a call, an invitation to live the faith like never before. Now, I invite you to do 3 things. 1, subscribe to the channel if this message resonated with you. Here, you'll find more spiritual, profound, and transformative content. 2, give the video a like so that this knowledge can be shared. Reach more people than you need. 3, comment below. Already have you ever used holy water with devotion? Are you up for trying this method for 40 days? We want to hear from you. Remember, the Lent is a spiritual window, but it will not last. Open forever. Take advantage the moment. Listen, he called. Live the miracle.